The organ had already begun when the note reached the front pew, and the Duke of Merevale read it standing, because there was no time to sit. His brother was not coming. His brother had taken a fast horse and a lighter conscience to Dover before dawn, and the bride, his brother's bride, waiting even now in the vestry in her white silk, did not yet know that the man she was to marry had run. Rowan Ashcombe, 7th Duke of Merevale, folded the note once, then again, and thought with cold clarity that his younger brother Frederick was the greatest coward in England, and that a church 300 people was about to become the scene of a woman's public ruin. He had never much liked Miss Clarissa Fenn. He had thought her too quiet, too easily overlooked, the sort of gentle creature Frederick collected and neglected by turns. But he had watched her come up the aisle of St. Aldous 100 times in the weeks of planning. And he had seen how she looked at his careless brother, and he knew, with the certainty of a man who had never once let himself be moved, that this note would break something in her that would not mend. 300 people, the bishop already robed. The whole of society waiting to see the future Duchess wed. Rowan did what he had done all his life when a thing had to be done and no one else would do it. He acted. He went to the vestry himself. He found her there, luminous and trembling and glad, and he closed the door behind him. "Miss Fenn," he said, "my brother is a coward and a fool, and he has gone to Dover. He will not be coming." He watched the words land. He watched the colour leave her, watched her reach blindly for the back of a chair, and he did not soften it, because softening a mortal blow only prolongs it. What he did instead was cross the little room and take her by both arms and hold her upright. "Listen to me," he said. "In that church are 300 people who came to see you married. If you walk out alone, you are ruined, not for a season, but for your life. No family will receive you, no man will have you, and the fault, which is entirely my brother's, will be laid on you until you die. I will not permit it." "Cannot," she whispered. "You cannot mend what he has. There is nothing to be done. There is one thing," Rowan said. "Marry me instead." She stared at him as though he had begun speaking in a foreign tongue. "The bishop is robed," he went on, relentless, practical. "The license names the duke's brother, and I am the duke. A word to the bishop and the vestry clerk settles it in 5 minutes. The congregation will see a bride and a groom and a duke's name and a wedding. They will not see a jilting. They will see that Merevale has taken his brother's careless bargain and made it a far greater one. You will walk out of that church a duchess, and Frederick will look like a boy who let a crown slip through his fingers, which is precisely what he is. You do not want me," Clarissa said, and there was no self-pity in it, only stark honesty. "You have never once spoken a kind word to me. You think me dull. Why would you?" "Because the alternative is your destruction," Rowan said. "And I have never in my life stood by and watched a thing be destroyed that I had the power to save. Give me your answer, Miss Fenn. The organ will not play forever." She looked at the door. She looked at him. Somewhere past the wall 300 people rustled and murmured, and "Yes," she said. They were married 11 minutes later. The bishop, murmuring, changed one name for another. The clerk altered the register, and the congregation, seeing the Duke of Merevale himself at the altar with the bride's hand in his, drew the only conclusion available and gasped, and then, for society loves nothing so much as a triumph it did not predict, applauded. When the couple came down the aisle, it was whispered already that the younger brother had been a mere placeholder, that the great Duke had wanted her all along. Rowan let them whisper it. It was useful, and it protected her, and that was all he required of a rumour. He expected the marriage to be what he had made it, a repair, a civil arrangement between two people who would keep separate lives under one enormous roof. He was a man of duty, and he had done his duty, and he anticipated nothing further from it. He had not reckoned on the roses. It began the 3rd morning, when he learned from an offhand remark of the housekeeper's that the Duchess had slept poorly, and that she had asked, shyly, whether the north room might be hers instead of the grande suite, because the grande suite faced the drive down which she had expected, once, to arrive as another man's wife. Rowan said nothing, but that afternoon the north room was made ready, and its cold hearth was mended, and on the sill, where she could see them from the bed, someone had set a bowl of the last roses of the season. He told himself it was efficiency. A duchess who slept badly was a duchess who ran the house badly. It did not stop at roses. The house began to change around her, and Rowan watching. could not always tell whether it was the house that had altered or himself. Merevale had been, in his father's day and his own, a place of cold magnificence, vast, ordered, silent, run like a garrison. The servants had feared the master and moved through the great rooms like shadows. Rowan had known no other way and had thought it the natural condition of a great house. Then Clarissa came, and within a season the silence had a different quality to it, warmer, as though the walls themselves had unclenched. She did it in small ways he could not always name. She learned that the undercook had a sick mother in the village, and quietly arranged that the woman should have the finest care Merivale's purse could buy. She noticed that old Hebert, who had served 3 dukes, could no longer climb the great stair and was ashamed of it, and had a small, comfortable room made for him below, so that his failing legs need never betray him before the household. She thanked people. She remembered their names, their children, their small griefs, and the fear that hung over Merivale like a frost began imperceptibly to melt. Rowan noticed the change before he understood its cause. He noticed that his valet no longer flinched when spoken to. He noticed that there was of an evening the faint sound of laughter from the servants' hall, a thing he had never once heard in 38 years. He noticed that he himself was no longer met, when he came home, by a house holding its breath, but by lamps already lit and a fire already burning, and, increasingly, by his wife at the top of the stair, come down to ask how his day had gone, as though she wished to know. "You have changed my house," he told her one evening, and could not keep the wonder from it. "I have only warmed it a little," Clarissa said. "It was cold, your grace." "Not unkind. I do not think you have an unkind bone in you, whatever the county says. But cold, the way a house grows cold when no one has been happy in it for a long while. I could not bear a cold house, so I lit some fires. That is all." "That is not all," Rowan said. He looked at her across the warm room, at the woman his brother had abandoned in a vestry, whom he had married in 11 minutes and had thought he pitied, and now found he did not pity in the least, but something else, something he had no practice in feeling. "You have lit some fires," he said quietly. "Yes, you have lit a great many fires, madam. I begin to think you have lit one that will not go out." She did not understand him, not yet. But she smiled, uncertain and pleased, and Rowan turned away to the window before his face could tell her more than he was ready to say. He was not, he told himself, a sentimental man. He simply found that he no longer dreaded coming home. He found that he arranged his affairs, without quite admitting it, so as to be home the sooner. He found that a house he had thought merely a possession had become, since a jilted bride crossed its threshold, the only place in the world he wished to be. He told himself it was the good management. He knew, even as he told himself, that it was not the management. It was her. Rowan Ashcombe had never in his life spoiled anyone. He had been raised to command, not to indulge. His father had prized only usefulness, and Rowan had grown into a man who trusted things he could measure. Accounts, harvests, the mending of a bridge. Tenderness he regarded as a luxury for men with less to do. And yet, when he learned that the Duchess admired a particular grey mare in the stables, but had not liked to ask for her, the mare was hers by Friday, groomed and saddled, with a note in his hard hand that said only, "She suits you, ride her," when he discovered, from a torn and much-read letter she had left on a table, that she had once wished to study Italian, and had been told it was a frivolous accomplishment for a girl of no fortune. An Italian master arrived from London within the fortnight, and the library was found to contain, quite suddenly, a shelf of Italian books that had not been there before. When she caught a chill in November, he sat outside her door through the whole of one bad night, sending for a second physician when the first did not satisfy him, and in the morning, when the fever broke and she asked weakly who had ordered the hothouse grapes at her bedside in December, no one could say. But the Duke did not appear at breakfast, and the head gardener was found to be very tired. Clarissa was not a fool. She saw it. She was simply, at first, unable to believe it. "You must stop," she told him one evening, finding him in his study over the accounts. She held in her hand a small enameled box she had admired in a shop window in the village a single time aloud, in passing. It had appeared on her dressing table that morning. "Your Grace, this is the 4th thing this month. I did not marry you for. I married you because you were kind enough to save me, and I have tried to be a good and useful wife to you, and I do not understand why you keep. She set the box down on his desk with trembling care. You do not even like me. You said so. You said you thought me dull. Rowan set down his pen. I said I had thought you dull, he corrected quietly. Before, when you were my brothers, and I did not look closely. I have since had occasion to look closely. He rose. He was not a man who found words easily for such things. He had spent 40 years not needing them. You run this house better than any Duchess Merevale has had in a century. You learned every servant's name in a month. You have made the north room the only room in this house I ever wished to sit in. You caught a chill tending a tenant's family that no one asked you to tend, and you nearly died of it. And I? He stopped. I have never in my life been afraid of anything until the night your fever would not break. Clarissa stood very still. The gifts are not, he gestured, uncharacteristically at a loss. They are the only language I have. My father did not raise me to say tender things. He raised me to do them and let them speak. So when I could not tell you that I have come to, that you are no longer a repair I made, but the reason I come home, I sent grapes, and a mare, and a box you looked at once, 'cause I did not know how to say the rest, and I could not bear to say nothing. You could not bear to say nothing, Clarissa repeated, and her voice broke on it. Rowan, do you know what it is for a woman who was left standing in a vestry in her wedding silk to be spoiled, to be studied? To have every small wish she was ever told was frivolous simply granted without her even asking. She pressed her hand to her mouth. I thought you married me from duty. I have spent every day of this marriage trying not to be a burden to the duty. You are not my duty, Rowan said. He crossed to her. He took the little enameled box from where she had set it and pressed it into her hands and closed her fingers over it. You are my wife, and you are, God help me, the thing I did not know I wanted until I had already given it my name by accident. Keep the box. Keep the mare. Keep all of it, and keep me with it, if you will have a cold man who only knows how to love in grapes and horses and mended hearths. Clarissa laughed, a wet and helpless laugh, and let the box fall to the carpet so that both her hands were free to take his face between them. You are not cold, she said. You are the warmest man in England. You simply hide it in packages. He kissed her then, his own wife, in his own study, with the accounts forgotten and the enameled box on the floor between their feet, and it was nothing at all like duty. Frederick came home from the continent in the spring, chastened and short of funds, and found his abandoned bride established as the most beloved duchess in the county, adored by her tenants, courted by society, and plainly, gloriously happy. He had expected to find her ruined. He found her a duchess who did not need to say a single unkind word to him, because his own brother's devotion said all of it, and said it every day in grapes and mares and roses on a windowsill. Frederick left within the week and troubled them very little afterward, but that was later. In the study that first evening, Clarissa bent and retrieved the fallen box and turned it in the candlelight. You will spoil me utterly, she warned him. You know that. I shall become impossible. Good, said the Duke of Merevale, who had never in his life wanted to give anyone anything, and now could not stop. See that you do. I have a great deal to make up to you, and the whole of our lives to do it in, and I intend to be very thorough. And he was. For all the long years that followed, no one who knew them ever again called Rowan Ashcombe a cold man. Not once they had seen the way the terrifying Duke of Merevale looked at the wife he had married in 11 minutes to save her, and had never, from that day to the last of his days, stopped finding new ways to spoil.